The U.S. will soon unveil what are called the toughest and most aggressive economic sanctions ever on North Korea. Vice President Mike Pence made that announcement this morning in Tokyo without providing details. He will lead the American delegation for the Winter Olympics in South Korea. Pence said the U.S. will continue its, quote, maximum pressure campaign until North Korea takes concrete steps toward complete, verifiable and irreversible denuclearization. We also learned this morning that Kim Jong Un's sister will join North Korea's delegation to the Pyeongchang Olympics. CBS News senior global affairs contributor Ian Bremmer is the president of the Eurasia Group. Good morning. Good morning. So much to talk about. Let's start with first, Vice President Pence not ruling out that he would have some high-level talks with a North Korean official while he's there. What could that mean?
Well, first of all, the tougher sanctions he's promising, it's not like the United States is doing any business with North Korea. So that means hitting the Chinese, hitting their banks, hitting their corporations, working with the North Koreans. We've already been talking about a much tougher trade stance towards the Chinese. That's a big deal. But Pence has not ruled out talking to the North Koreans. They're both going to be there around the Olympics. Now that he's played tough, the ability of the United States to also engage diplomatically in the way the South Koreans already are, there's clearly an opening there. The North Koreans are showing all of this diplomacy, sports diplomacy, sending high-level officials, their symbolic head of state, as well as now their sister, her first trip to South Korea. All of this is on the back of pressure from the Trump administration. So there is an opportunity that's been set up by Trump, just not clear if they can take it.
Well, does it mean that the Trump stand, the end of strategic patience, is working?
Well, let's put it this way. It makes it more likely there's a breakthrough, and it makes it more likely that we incinerate a couple million Koreans. And, I mean, both of those are on the table right now. And the question is, do you like the uncertainty?
So if this means more pressure on China, these sanctions that the vice president has talked about but hasn't detailed, does that mean China is not doing its job in pressuring North Korea? Because there have been conflicting signals from the administration on whether China is being helpful or not helpful.
The Chinese are doing more than they have under either the Obama or Bush administrations. They've supported significantly escalatory, unanimous sanctions at the UN Security Council. They are cracking down on smuggling across the border. They've limited joint ventures with the North Koreans that was leading to money in North Korea. But they're not prepared to cut them off because they're concerned of what would happen if the North Korean regime implodes. Now, that is going to prevent Trump for saying that they're doing enough. He is pointing the finger there, and Trump is also pointing the finger at the Chinese because we're expanding our trade deficit with them. We're not getting access to their economy. So a lot of things that are playing out at the same time. North Korea is only one of those pieces.
And also,
go ahead.
Well, also, how much of this is theater? So we also hear about the so-called bloody nose strike, this idea of a possible limited strike against North Korea. How much of this is actually being thought of, these big sanctions, this bloody nose, and how much of it is a part of kind of threatening in order to pull back or as a part of the negotiating pot?
I think the fact that on the day of the State of the Union, Victor Cha, who was meant to be the ambassador to South Korea, pulled out because he had privately been pushing the White House, I'm told, H.R. McMaster, National Security Advisor, saying this isn't going to work. And McMaster's like, that's it, you're done. That's not a good step because clearly Trump himself wants a viable military option. And when you talk to the intelligence analysts in the U.S. government that know the most about North Korea, we've got the signals intelligence, we've got the satellite imagery, we have no human intelligence at all. There's no one out there that believes that they have a bead on how one of the most brutal leaders in the world would respond to a bloody-nosed preemptive strike against his country.
I want to go back to the sister for a second. I heard you say that it's her first trip, but what's the significance? Because I think most people don't even know he had a sister. And number two, he seems like such a lone wolf. So what is her role exactly?
She's known. She's politically engaged. She's presently occupying the role, I believe, that her aunt used to. But no one knows exactly what that means in terms of decision-making. I think what we can say with a fair amount of certainty is that the fact that she's going implies that there is a message, a direct message, from Kim Jong Un going to the South Korean government. And it really is an effort to say, never mind these Americans, we can work together, which the South Korean president is interested in. Look, this whole idea of good cop, bad cop would be useful if the South Koreans and the Americans were working together on this, but they're not, right? So the South Koreans pushed back on joint exercises with the Americans to make sure the Olympics were fine. Secretary of Defense Mattis wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, and they're marching together in the opening ceremony.
That's right.
North and South Korea together.
Yeah.
That says something. Thank you very much, Ian Bremmer. Always good to have you at the table.